Have you ever noticed how some women don't flirt in a direct way, but instead they quietly test your awareness? They don't chase, they don't confess, and they definitely don't make it obvious, especially when it comes to mature men, men who carry presence, experience, and emotional depth. Instead, they ask certain questions, subtle, almost casual, and inside those questions is everything you need to know. Hi, I'm Olivia, host of Psychology Secrets with Olivia. And today, we're going to uncover something most men completely miss. Yet once you see it, you'll never unsee it again. And let me talk to you directly for a moment. Because if you've ever walked away from a conversation thinking, she was just being nice, only to realize later that she might have actually been interested, you're not alone. This happens more often than you think. And it's not because women are confusing. It's because they communicate differently, much more subtly, much more emotionally. And once you understand this language, everything changes. Now, here's the truth most men were never taught. Women, especially emotionally intelligent women, rarely express attraction in a direct, obvious way. Not because they're playing games, but because they're protecting their emotional energy. Think about it. If a woman openly shows interest and it's not reciprocated, she risks feeling exposed, vulnerable, even rejected. So instead, she creates space for you to step forward. She gives you signals, but in a softer, more layered way. And this becomes even more powerful when she's interacting with a mature man. Because with older men, her expectations are different. She assumes you already understand emotional nuance. She assumes you've lived enough to recognize subtle signals. She assumes you don't need everything spelled out. So instead of saying, "I like you," she asks. And those questions? They are not random. They are not casual. They are carefully chosen emotional tests. Now, I want you to imagine this. You're sitting in a cafe. Maybe it's a quiet evening. The conversation is flowing naturally. There's ease, there's comfort, and there's something else, a soft tension, the kind that doesn't need words. She smiles a little longer than necessary. She maintains eye contact just a second more. Her body leans in, even if only slightly. And then, she asks something that seems simple, something harmless. But in reality, it's a doorway. And here's where most men go wrong. They answer the words, but they miss the meaning. And that's the difference between a man who creates attraction and a man who unknowingly lets it fade. Because feminine psychology doesn't operate on surface-level communication. It operates on emotional depth. When a woman is drawn to you, she doesn't just want to know what you say. She wants to feel how you are. Are you present? Are you grounded? Are you emotionally open? Or are you closed off, distracted, and unaware? So instead of asking directly, she observes, she senses, and she asks questions that reveal your emotional state without exposing her own. Now, let me explain something deeper here. From a psychological perspective, attraction, especially for women, is not just about physical appeal. It's about emotional safety combined with intrigue. She wants to feel safe, but also drawn in. She wants to feel that you are stable, but not stagnant, open, but not needy, strong, but not distant. And these two questions she asks, they are designed to measure exactly that. Not your job, not your money, not your achievements, but your emotional availability and your direction in life. Let's go deeper, because this is where it becomes powerful. The first thing a woman unconsciously evaluates when she feels drawn to a man is this. Is there space for me in his world? Not physical space, emotional space. And instead of asking that directly, she disguises it. She asks something like, "Do you spend a lot of time alone?" Now on the surface, this sounds like small talk, but it's not. It's layered. When she asks this, she's not asking about your schedule. She's asking about your openness. She's asking, are you emotionally available? Are you someone who allows connection? Or are you locked inside your own world? And this is where so many men fail without realizing it, because they respond logically. I'm alone most of the time. Yeah, I just do my own thing. I don't really go out much. And while these answers might be true, they unintentionally send the wrong signal. They create emotional distance. Because what she hears is not independence. She hears isolation. And here's the subtle difference. A woman is not afraid of a man who enjoys his own space. She's attracted to it. But she needs to feel that there is room for her within that space. That your independence is a choice, not a wall. Let me give you a real-life example. There was a man, let's call him Raj, in his early 50s, calm, composed, successful. He met a woman at a mutual friend's gathering. They connected instantly. She laughed at his jokes, she asked questions, she leaned into the conversation, and at one point she asked him, "So, do you usually spend your time alone?" Raj, being honest, said, "Yes, I like being alone. I don't really need anyone." Now he thought this made him look strong, independent, self-sufficient. But what she felt was exclusion. Because in that moment, she didn't feel invited into his world. And slowly, her energy shifted. The conversation became polite, the warmth faded, and within minutes, the opportunity was gone. Now imagine if he had said something slightly different. Something like, "I enjoy my own space, but I also appreciate good company when it feels right." Do you feel the difference? Same man. Same reality, but a completely different emotional message. One creates distance, the other creates possibility, and that's what she's looking for. Not perfection, not desperation, just openness with strength. Now, here's where it gets even more interesting. If you respond to that first question with the right balance, calm, grounded, open, something shifts in her. She relaxes. She feels safe enough to take the next step. And that's when the second question appears. And this one? This one is deeper, more direct, more revealing. She asks, "What are you looking for these days?" Now, I want you to pause for a second, because this question changes everything. This is not small talk. This is not curiosity. This is evaluation. When a woman asks this, she is no longer just enjoying your presence, she is imagining you in her life. And she wants to know, are you a man with direction or a man who is drifting? Because from a psychological standpoint, women are naturally drawn to men who have clarity, not because they need to follow him blindly, but because clarity creates emotional safety. When a man knows who he is, knows what he wants, knows where he's going, he becomes predictable in the best way, grounded, stable, trustworthy, and that allows her to open. But when a man responds with uncertainty, "I don't know. I'm just going with the flow. I'm figuring things out," it creates hesitation, because now she doesn't know where she fits. Let me tell you another story. A woman once shared this with me during a coaching session. She said she met a man who was incredibly attractive, not just physically, but emotionally. He was calm, present, confident without trying too hard, and she felt drawn to him. So she asked him, "What are you looking for right now in life?" And his response was, "I'm just trying to pass time and see what happens." In that moment, everything changed for her. Not because his answer was wrong, but because it lacked direction. She didn't feel anchored anymore. And without that feeling, attraction faded. Now compare that with a different kind of answer. "I'm building a life that feels meaningful, and I'm open to sharing that with the right person." Simple, clear, grounded, and most importantly, intentional. That's what she's listening for. Not a perfect plan, not a detailed roadmap, just direction. Because direction tells her that you are emotionally alive, that you are moving, that you are not stuck in the past or drifting without purpose. And this is especially important for mature men, because at this stage in life, women assume something. They assume you've already experienced enough to know yourself. So when you show uncertainty, it doesn't feel like exploration. It feels like disconnection. Now, I want to bring this back to you because this isn't just theory. This is something you can start noticing immediately. The next time you're talking to a woman, pay attention. Not just to what she says, but to why she's saying it. When she asks about your alone time, she's checking your openness. When she asks what you're looking for, she's checking your direction. And how you respond in those moments, determines everything. Not your looks, not your status, not your past, but your presence, your awareness, your emotional intelligence. And here's something I want you to remember deeply. A woman rarely gives the same emotional invitation twice. If she opens that door and you don't step through it, she closes it quietly, not out of ego, but out of self-respect. So the goal is not to overthink, not to memorize lines, but to become aware, to listen beneath the surface, to respond with calm confidence. Now, before we continue, I want you to do something simple. If you're starting to recognize moments from your own life, times when you might have missed these signals, comment below. I see it now. Because awareness is the first step to change. And trust me, Once you see this, your interactions will never be the same again. Now, in the next part, we're going to go even deeper. I'll show you exactly how to respond in real conversations, what subtle mistakes instantly kill attraction, and how to create a natural emotional pull without trying too hard. And most importantly, how to become the kind of man women feel, not just notice. Because now that you understand what she's really asking, the next level is learning how to respond in a way that creates connection instead of closing the door. And this is where most men unknowingly lose the moment. Not because they're unattractive, not because they lack experience, but because they respond from habit instead of awareness. So let me slow this down and bring you into a real emotional moment again. Imagine you're sitting across from her. There's a natural rhythm between you, nothing forced, nothing awkward. And then she asks, "So, do you spend a lot of time alone?" Now, here's what's really happening beneath the surface. She's not just listening to your words, she's watching your energy, your tone, your body language, your emotional availability. And in that exact moment, her subconscious is asking, does this man feel open or closed? Does he create space or distance? Would being around him feel warm or isolating? And your response, whether you realize it or not, answers all of that instantly. Now, let me show you 3 types of responses and how each one feels to her. The first is what I call the closed response. Yeah, I'm mostly alone. I prefer it that way. On the surface, this sounds strong, independent, self-sufficient, but emotionally, it feels like a wall. There's no invitation, no warmth, no opening. It tells her there's no space here. And even if she was interested, she will pull back. Not dramatically, not obviously, just subtly. And you'll feel the shift, but you won't know why. The second type is the needy response. No, I actually get bored alone. I wish I had someone. Now this creates the opposite problem. Instead of distance, it creates pressure because now she feels like she has to fill a gap in your life. And attraction doesn't grow in pressure. It grows in ease. So again, she pulls back. Now here's the third type. And this is where emotional intelligence shows. I enjoy my own space, but I also value good company when it comes naturally. Feel that? There's calmness, there's balance, there's openness without neediness, and most importantly, there's an invitation without expectation. This is what creates emotional safety. And when a woman feels safe, she leans in, not because she has to, but because she wants to. Now let's take this even deeper. Because words alone are not enough. It's how you deliver them. A grounded man doesn't rush his response. He doesn't over-explain. He doesn't try to impress. He simply speaks with presence, slow, calm, certain. And this triggers something powerful in her psychology. It tells her, this man is not reacting. He is responding. And that difference is everything. Now let's move to the second question, because this is where attraction either deepens or disappears. She looks at you, maybe with a softer expression now, and asks, "So, what are you looking for these days?" And again, this is not about information. This is about direction. She's asking, is this man going somewhere in life? Does he have clarity or confusion? Would being with him feel stable or uncertain? And here's where many men make a critical mistake. They think honesty means saying everything exactly as it is. I don't know. I'm just seeing what happens. I'm not really looking for anything serious. Now listen carefully. Honesty is important, but emotional clarity is more important because attraction is not built on raw information. It's built on how that information feels. Let me give you a deeper perspective here. From a psychological standpoint, women are wired to seek emotional and environmental stability, not control, not dominance, but grounded direction. Because when a man has direction, she can relax. She doesn't have to guess. She doesn't have to lead. She doesn't have to question where things are going. And that creates space for her to express her feminine energy, her warmth, her openness, her emotional depth. But when a man lacks direction, she shifts. She becomes more guarded, more analytical, less emotionally available. Because now, she doesn't feel safe enough to open. So instead of answering vaguely, you answer with intent. Not pressure, not promises, just clarity. Something like, I'm at a stage where I value real connection, something that feels natural, meaningful, and aligned. Or I'm focused on building a life that feels right. And if the right person comes into that, I welcome it. Do you see what's happening here? You're not chasing. You're not convincing. You're simply expressing direction. And that allows her to imagine herself within your world. And imagination is where attraction grows. Now, let me share something very important with you. Attraction is not created in big moments. It's created in small emotional decisions. Moments like this, moments where she tests and you respond, where she opens slightly and you either meet her there or miss it completely. And this is why awareness matters so much, because these moments don't come with announcements. They don't say, "This is your chance." They appear quietly, and they disappear just as quietly. Let me tell you a story that might stay with you. There was a man in his late 50s, calm, successful, well-respected. He met a woman during a morning walk in the park. They started talking casually, then regularly. There was a natural connection, nothing forced, just ease. One day she asked him, "Do you usually come here alone?" And he smiled and said, "Yes, I've always been alone. I'm used to it." Now again, nothing wrong with that, but something closed in that moment. She nodded, smiled, and the conversation continued. But the emotional energy changed. A few days later, she stopped coming at the same time. Eventually, she disappeared from his routine, and he never understood why. Years later, when he reflected on it, he realized something. It wasn't what he said, it was what she felt. She didn't feel invited. She didn't feel space. Now imagine if he had said, "I usually come alone, but I wouldn't mind good company." That one sentence could have changed everything. Now, here's something I want you to really take in. Women don't fall for perfection. They fall for presence. They fall for how you make them feel in small, quiet moments. Do they feel seen? Do they feel safe? Do they feel that there is space for them in your life? And do they feel that your life has direction they can trust? These are the real questions behind her questions. Now, let's make this practical. Because I don't want you to just understand this. I want you to use it. Here's a simple exercise I want you to try. The next time you're in a conversation with a woman, slow down your responses by just a second. Instead of reacting immediately, pause. Feel the moment. Ask yourself silently, what is she really asking right now? And then respond, not just with words, but with awareness. This one small shift will change the way people experience you, not just women. Everyone, because you'll stop living on the surface and start connecting on a deeper level. Now, another powerful tip, pay attention to how often she asks personal questions, because curiosity is a form of emotional investment. If she's asking about your habits, your mindset, your direction, she's not just being polite, she's exploring you, and exploration is the beginning of attraction. But here's the catch. If she feels no response, no depth, no emotional presence, she stops exploring. And once she stops, it's very difficult to restart that energy. Now, let me ask you something. How many times in your life have you felt something shift in a conversation, but you couldn't explain why? That subtle change, that drop in energy, that moment where everything felt right, and then suddenly, it didn't. Most of the time, it's moments like these. Missed emotional signals, unrecognized invitations, and the truth is, it's not your fault. You were never taught this language, but now you see it. And once you see it, you can't go back to not knowing. So now the question becomes, what kind of man do you choose to be? The one who answers words, or the one who understands meaning, the one who reacts automatically, or the one who responds with awareness? Because that choice shows in every interaction you have. Now, before we close, I want you to do something important. If this shifted your perspective, even slightly, take a moment and like this video. Not for me, but because it helps this message reach more people who are still missing these moments every single day. And I want you to comment something simple. I notice now, because when you write it, you reinforce it. And if you haven't already, subscribe to Psychology Secrets with Olivia, because this is just the beginning. There are layers to human connection that most people never explore. But you You're starting to, and that already sets you apart. Now remember this. A woman may never say, I like you. She may never confess her attraction. She may never make the first obvious move, but she will ask, softly, subtly, twice, are you open? And do you have direction? If you can feel those questions and respond with presence, you won't need to chase attraction anymore because it will naturally move toward you. And once you experience that, you'll never look at conversations the same way again.